Hi, everybody. It's not working out right. Let me see. All right, there we go. Better. Here is my AV Geeks fireman film lasagna hat, cap, helmet. I got something. I mean, this is like. I just got it, and my mind is kind of blown here. So we'll be looking at this over the next couple of weeks. This is from our pen pal homeschooling kids who watch the show. And so thank you for that. Then also Restream, which is my streaming kind of propagator, just kind of pulled some shenanigans where I had to pay $300 to stream to what I'm normally streaming to, because they changed how they're setting things up. So if you want to buy me some coffee, that money will go towards paying off the restreaming to all the different channels. Very frustrating to have that just happen, like, oh, you can't stream to all your channels. Anyways, children in China in the maybe 40s or 50s or 30s, I don't know when this film was made, didn't have that problem. Didn't have to worry about who they're streaming their social media to. It was a simpler time. So let's watch.
Nestled in a broad, fertile plain of western China is the ancient village of Guanxin. It is early morning, but already the day's activities are getting underway. A farmer from an outlying district drives his noisy flock of ducks to the Guanxin village market. Porters with squeaky wheelbarrows make their way along roads nearby to market with grain, to market with pigs that swing from shoulder poles. Produce and people, barrows and rickshaws move along roads that lead to the village. For centuries, ornamental gates which mark the entrances to Guanxin have witnessed the round of village life. This morning, as on countless other mornings, porters trudge along with their creaking shoulder poles, bearing the goods of commerce, bearing well-to-do passengers in swaying sedan chairs. Men with burdens on their backs, others leading herds of goats, pass along the narrow streets. After the quiet of the night, the village comes to life. Shops boarded up while the village slept are now opened wide for trade again as customers come along. Once more, goods are displayed as buyer and seller bargain. Shops that deal in household goods and shops that offer vegetables begin once more to serve the needs of customers from the village. Through the day, the handheld scale will weigh out many a purchase. And in a nearby lumber yard, the saws will hum until darkness falls. Among those having early morning errands in the village is old Grandfather Lee, long a well-known farmer of Guanxin. His farm on the village outskirts no longer needs his laborers. The lands owned by the Lee family through the centuries are now farmed by Grandfather Lee's sons. Already in a garden patch beside the family household, Li Wing Kwang, the eldest son, is carefully tending the soil. And as part of the preparation for the morning meal, Mei Lan, a sister-in-law, draws water from a well. Like all water used for drinking, it will be boiled and perhaps made into tea. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, the wife of Li Wing Kwang busies herself over a large iron kettle. Using charcoal for fuel, she has prepared a large quantity of steaming rice. There are many mouths to feed in the Li household. Her son, Li Shu Ming, will want a good meal before he leaves for school. Just now he is finishing the long and careful brushing of his teeth that starts off every day. The washing of his hands follows next, as he stands before a basin of water from the well. His sister and a cousin, having already finished dressing, play with baby brother. Tending little Ollie Young is one of sister's regular tasks, though she is often gladly assisted by Grandmother Lee, who sits close by, proudly knitting a little jacket for her grandson. But now, as sister-in-law Mei Lan brings in some dishes she has prepared for the morning meal, the group assembled for breakfast are ready to begin. Now the chopsticks go into action. Everyone helps himself from the dishes of vegetables placed in the center. Sister and brother, mother and father, aunt and uncle all hold rice bowls in the left hand and chopsticks in the right. As they eat, there are frequent pauses for sips of tea from cups that are filled and filled again. With breakfast over, Farmer Lee leads his water buffalo from the stall for the day's work in the rice fields. His brother and a helper take up their farming tools, and the three men, together with their faithful buffalo, proceed to the family lands. On their way, they pass a small shrine housing local gods of the fields. Meanwhile, Xu Ming and his sister Mei Ling have started off to school. On the way, they call for a friend.
Wang Jinchan, 你準備起手
Are you ready, King Chan?
專門等一位
In a minute, Xu Ming. And now, joined by their friend King Chan, the children proceed to school. They make their way through the traffic of the village streets, swinging along with their school books. Entering the school grounds, other boys and girls of the village are also arriving for class. They are proud of their school, the children of the village. Proud, too, of their Boy Scout and Girl Scout uniforms. To these organizations, almost all the children belong, though not everyone wears his scout uniform to school. When all have entered the classroom and have taken their places, lessons proceed. Reading is first on the schedule for today. Mei Ling takes out her reader, which contains stories teaching the importance of loyalty to parents. From these stories, King Chan is first to read.
一个小孩子在家里要孝顺父母，在学校要注意
While he reads, his father, a wealthy silk merchant of the village, calculates his accounts with an abacus. While this girl reads, her father, an honored miller of the village, grinds grain with ancient stones.
小孩子在家里要服从父母，在学校
While
要
this lad
谨
reads,
慎睡觉
his father, a musical instrument maker, is busy with his work. The wooden parts for lutes, violins, and flutes he shapes by hand with greatest care. But the fathers of most of the children are farmers, like the father of Xu Ming and Mei Ling. Here he plows his fields while his brother works nearby, breaking up the clods of earth with a hoe and making ready for planting. As the day wears on, Mother Lee makes her way to the field, bringing a pot of tea to her husband. For Father Lee, as with other farmers, the work day is long, and a refreshing drink of the hot, thirst-quenching liquid most welcome. In the afternoon, Grandfather employs a scribe to write a letter to a friend. Grandfather Lee never learned to write. But his grandson is more fortunate. Writing is one of the first things Xu Ming is taught in school. Here for the children to copy, the teacher writes Chunghua. Chunghua meaning Middle Kingdom, the Chinese name for China. Xiuming is more fortunate than grandfather, too, in sharing in the play program of the modern school. Likewise, the girls learn bodybuilding games their mothers never played, games Mei Ling enjoys. In the late afternoon, both schoolyard games and classroom lessons are over for the day. Boys and girls file out of the gate, some to work, some to play. With school over, King Chan thinks it would be nice to play checkers, but Xiuming wants to go swimming. There's an easy way to decide: the game of stone, scissors, and paper.
1、2、3。
King John wins, and checkers it will be. In one of the dimly lighted rooms off the courtyard of the Wong home, the friends take up their game. Perhaps in this game, Xiuming will win. And now toward evening, grandfather makes his leisurely way through the village, back to the Lee home. It has been a pleasant day, with many a friendly chat. Now, too, Farmer Lee leads his buffalo back to the stall after a long day's work in the fields. Before little Aliang is put to bed, there must be fond good nights to grandfather and grandmother. Now, in the evening, Farmer Lee, who does the buying for the family, makes a purchase of salt. Mother is once again at her stove, preparing the evening meal for her family. To the children, seated in the darkening courtyard, come the strains of a neighbor's violin. The wistful melody floats out over the ancient village toward the mountains that loom beyond.
It just ends. Yeah. So that was 40s Encyclopedia Britannica, or ERPI. It's our good friend narrating. So behind me, I have the film scanner hooked up. And we have a British film about math. Enjoy.
I'm a teacher at a junior mixed school in Wu, and this is my class, consisting of 39 9 and 10-year-olds. At the beginning of a maths clue is to guard from this rack on the wall.
The assignment card, as it's sometimes called, simply presents a child with a problem. A real problem. Not just a sum wrapped round with words, which we've often taken to be a problem in the past.
By pouring the water into the measuring jug. Shape and area. You will need a shape board and some rubber bands. Now fill each box with sand using a cubic inch. And
A problem has reality, and it has interest for the child. It belongs to his world. And because it belongs to his world, he'll be interested in finding the solution.
Now then, we've to find how many peas there are in this jar. How many do you think there are, Jeffrey? About 600. About 500. We have to measure the circumference of each ball. What is the circumference? The distance all around the ball. Well, we can't use a ruler for that, so we'll have to use the string.
I think this is a preferable method of teaching mathematics, because it does demand that you, the teacher, get around the class and talk to these children and discuss with them their problems, and you can help them without telling them the answer or without giving too much away. You can, I think, gain the child's interest and help it very much more than you can simply by paper and pencil.
Yes, you could weigh the empty bottle on the scales and then weigh it when it's full of water and then double it and take it away, and then you've got the weight of a quart of water. But that won't be right, you see, because not all the peas weigh the same weight. So
But if you consider really what research can tell us about how children think, how children learn, we must accept that they learn at this level purely through concrete situations, through things which they can do and handle and touch, and not through a world of abstract symbolism and things devoid of reality.
Multiply by 16, that makes 40 miles. Do you think we should check it with the AA book?
Yes, the whole basis of what we are trying to do here is that by what we now call the concrete approach, if the child actually does something, handles something, he is more likely to retain it because it is an actual experience than he is by using his memory alone, or just by virtue of having been taught. We say that teaching by telling is often harmful, and that memory alone is useless. When you actually do something, it sort of sticks. Of course, everybody knows that for a certain type of problem you want a right answer. But the point is that you've got to be able to go on getting the right answer. If you simply do it by rote, by parrot learning, you're unlikely to remember it in a fortnight's time. But if you've really grasped the underlying principle, you'll not only be able to do the same problem, but also something a little bit different in a fortnight's time.
I think we must be aware always that memory, although a useful tool, is not the whole story. It's best put perhaps in the terms of a Chinese proverb. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And it's this understanding that we're after, and that we can best make it possible for children to gain real understanding of the problem by allowing them to be actively involved in something.
Good. Yes, you've balanced it. And that's called balancing the equation.
Well, if we double the dimensions, the cube gets 8 times bigger. Yes. Cubes get very big quickly. Should we make a graph to show it? Multiply the 3 dimensions of each box and write down your answer. We've done that. Yes. What do you notice?
Well, what do you notice?
Well, you don't have to fill each box with sand. All you have to do is multiply the dimensions together.
That's right. Good.
Please, sir, we found out that one of these blocks weighs 10 1/4 ounces. But we want to find out how many of them weighs 1 stone.
Please, sir, not all of these blocks weigh 10 1/4 ounces. This one weighs 9 3/4 ounces, and this one weighs 10 ounces.
Now, in this sort of problem, we're not really bothered about 1/4 ounce one way or the other. But we've got to settle for something. Now, what are we going to settle for?
10 ounces.
Yes, and I think 10 ounces is sufficient, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think if you use 10 ounces, you will be able to find that out very easily, and it's much better than messing about with all these 1/4 ounces.
What are the diameters? Well, they could stick a pin through it if it wouldn't burst. Well, it will, so we'll have to use the calipers. What other route do you know that would take you from Blackpool to Bowness?
Well, what other route is there to Bowness?
You can cut through Lancaster
Yes,
on
well,
the
that's by the
A6.
A6.
Or go on the M6. We've got the Globe card this time. I wish we had the train card. Can't we swap it? No, Patsy Black's group's got that. Now then, we've to measure from London to Winnipeg and Blackpool to Auckland. Now then, we'll measure from Blackpool to Auckland first. To hold that on Blackpool, please. It's on now. Right. That's on Auckland. Right. Have you got your finger right on Blackpool?
So, if I gave you a diameter, you could find me the circumference, could you?
Yes.
What would you do, Jane?
Well, you multiply by 3 and...
A little bit. That would be all right, would it? Yes, it certainly would. Good. All right. Now, supposing I gave you a circumference.
In the past, we've tended to think, haven't we, that if a classroom was quiet, then there was concentration. And this isn't true at all. Concentration only comes through interest, through real involvement in what you're doing. If the children are presented with situations, with problems which are of real interest to them, they get so deeply involved in them that there's no unnecessary noise.
They're working something out. They're talking to each other, the same as adults talk over the problem. This is what we want, surely. We don't want children sitting up straight in their desks completely on their own.
Language plays an essential part in mathematics. Children must discuss with each other what they're doing, for by this means they learn. And in this way, children's vocabulary grows and, in turn, helps their written expression, their written description of the kind of things they've been doing. They learn more, in fact, from each other and from the material and the problems presented than they could ever do sitting quietly listening to a teacher.
The important thing about this is that children are like us all. They do like this little bit of personal and individual attention.
Leslie?
But they much prefer that the teacher should come and talk to the three of them than stand out in front of the class like a sergeant major with a piece of chalk in his hand and talk to the whole class. Because I don't think that they feel then that it is personal to them. The more personal a teacher can get with his teaching, the more it is appreciated by the child. And the more response you will get from the child too, if he thinks that you are talking to it personally.
But if they're involved in group activities, then it is possible to get round to see them and talk to them, encourage them and perhaps pose an additional question which will help their thinking onto the next stage.
Now, have a look at these three plasticine shapes. All right? Derek, which do you think is the biggest of the three?
The cylinder.
The cylinder, all right. Now, Alec, which do you think is the heaviest of the three?
The cube.
Now, Chris, which is the biggest?
The cube.
The cube. And which do you think is the heaviest?
The cube.
The cube again?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we'll see, shall we? Thank you. Now, what's that?
2.5.
What's that?
2.5.
Chris, what's that?
2.5.
All right. Surprised? Now, something changes here, Edwina, when I move this new shape. Now, watch it carefully. Now, what changes?
The area.
The area, right. Now, Yvonne, something else is changing. What is it?
That.
That. What's that, Suzanne?
The height.
The height. Which height? The slant height or the vertical height?
The vertical.
The vertical height. That's right. So, if I want to find the area of this new shape, which is a parallelogram, what must I multiply together? Yvonne?
The base by the vertical height.
The base by the vertical height. Now,
This is the basic difference, isn't it? Before, we were concerned with getting the answer right. And now the thinking teacher is concerned with how much of this did the child understand? How far has he got in his thinking? It's a completely different approach from the old approach of accuracy and getting the answer right and getting it ticked.
After a while, I'm sure all children find this method much preferable. They enjoy their maths. They look forward to it. Because after all, it is something which they can enjoy. They are doing something. In some cases, I'm quite certain the children think they are having quite a game, but a very purposeful game, and from our point of view, we must see that this is so. I suppose the reason that the whole of maths teaching is in such a mess at present is that the syllabus hasn't changed, in effect, for 300 years. In fact, some Rip Van Winkle, coming back after being asleep for 1,000 years, would be able to do most of the O-level syllabus. In particular, the primary school syllabus was last fundamentally looked at over a century ago, when the main object was to train people to do sums on a high stool at a large desk, to be Victorian clerks. And until about 5 years ago, no one had ever thought of altering this dismal state of affairs.
What we're looking for is an improvement in the whole approach and attitude to the learning of mathematics. This we cannot yet assess, but we can say that there is interest, that tremendous progress is being made, that children are now doing things at 9 and 10 which were formerly done at 13 and 14. I think we can widely generalize and say that we have underestimated children's ability. in a very wide way. We haven't realized how much they're capable of. This we can be sure of. Anything else is prediction. But we would confidently predict that by approaching mathematics in this way, children will get a joy and a pleasure in it, which the majority of children have never had before.
Pack up! Come on, bring the apparatus in. Playtime.
Reminds me of the Up series, which was it Michael Apted did, where they started with little school kids in Britain at age 7, and then they revisited them every 7 years. And I haven't seen the most recent one, and Michael Apted actually passed away, but it's fascinating. And you listen to these little kids with their accents, and it's just, I don't know, they just seem smarter than American kids, but I know that's not true. But anyways, so that film basically said that the films I have been showing about math are no good. So there you go. This next film is brought to us by General Motors, and they want us to get a permit to drive.
I am your permit to drive an automobile, your license to use the highway system of the United States. I am only a card in your wallet or purse, yet I unroll before your eyes a magic carpet, the millions of miles of highways and byways that crisscross the nation. I am your round-trip travel ticket, your passport to pleasure. With me, you can motor from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Gulf to the Great Lakes. You can travel with me as your only identification. I am the only commuter's ticket you need to drive to and from school or work, day after day, year after year. I have become vital to more than 50 million people in this land of ours. I am their constant companion. I go with them wherever they go. The farmer on his way at sunup, the bus driver, the truck driver, the ambulance driver, the policeman, the cab driver. No matter who they are, no matter where they are, I am with them. With me in their possession, the drivers of our millions of rubber-tired vehicles help keep turning the wheels of our national economy, whether they roll over highway or city streets. For in the past 25 years, driving has opened the gate of commerce between city and farm, factory and consumer. With me in their possession, the daily life of millions has taken on new meaning. The family, the individual, has a freedom of movement so new it did not exist in the youth even of our own parents. For the automobile has brought with it, in less than a lifetime, a new way of life, a new standard of living, a standard of living matched by no other nation in the world.
Because of the automobile, new industries have taken their place on our national landscape to add billions to our wealth by providing goods, services, and job opportunities undreamed of only yesterday. Our whole way of living has become geared to the automobile. I am your permit, your license, your permission to drive. I am a privilege and an obligation. Your obligation to drive skillfully, carefully, and legally. This year, there will again be thousands of innocent victims of those who will not recognize this obligation. I will be among the last papers of tens of thousands who will have no further use for me. And I may be merely a means of identification of almost 1 million whose injuries may be permanent. 1 million accident victims whose numbers contain twice as many 15 to 24-year-old drivers as any other. Over and over, I ask myself, why? Is it the supposed thoughtlessness of youth that takes such a toll? Is it inexperience that leads to the taking of foolish chances? Is it the failure of adults to teach the young people the right way to drive? Or is it my fault? Have I allowed myself to become taken for granted? I try to tell people when they write their names across my face that they're signing more than a signature, that they are signing a pledge to be the kind of driver they want others to be. I try to tell people that as a nation of more than 50 million drivers, we owe to each other the courtesy, the fair play each of us expects. As a nation, we set great store by sportsmanship. Almost all of us at some time play the game. And no matter what the game may be, it has its rules. Rules of courtesy and fairness and sportsmanship. Rules that determine the pattern of action of all who play. Each game has its code of rules, and each set of rules is known and respected by all who play and all who watch. We have come to demand fair play and sportsmanship in all things, great and small. It has become second nature, for example, for those who play golf to allow others to play through. For the bowler to carefully avoid the almost invisible foul line. For the runner to stay in his lane. The same rules of sportsmanship apply to driving an automobile. Unfortunately, there are drivers amongst us who are poor sports, drivers who can dish it out, but can't take it. They are the reckless, who cause the accidents that maim and kill. They are the offenders whose invasion of the rights of others may lead to curtailment of their own rights. For remember, I am your permit to drive, not your right to drive, for you are entitled to drive only as long as you abide by the rules of driving. The rules of driving are fundamentally simple, based on common sense. Common sense safety for yourself and for others. When you're walking, for instance, say by yourself, or even with a few other people on a country road, there's room to spare, and walking is no problem. But this milling throng in the heart of a great city can represent the traffic problem of today. When you look down on it, there's not much difference between a jam of people and a jam of automobiles. But when you look closely at the people, when you get down among them, you'll find there's a vast difference. As members of a group of civilized human beings, each going about his own individual business, there is a smooth surge of motion, a unity of action, and there's respect for the rights of others, a polite avoidance of contact, wholehearted cooperation, and courtesy. So it can be with the milling throng of automobiles across our land. So it can be with you. Staying off the white lines, waiting for the green lights, stopping at the stop sign, slowing down in school zones, observing the traffic signs, and thinking. Thinking while you drive about your driving, keeping your mind on your driving and your eye on the road. The thinking driver, the alert driver, takes no chances with the lives of himself and others. The alert driver can avoid accidents. He can slow down, for instance, in time to protect himself and others, in time to avoid the aggravation of minor damage, damage that costs money and denies the use of the car. You pay the cost of the driving mistakes of others, and they of yours, in more stringent traffic regulations, in higher insurance rates. Perhaps the poor driver never learned the proper way to drive. You have more opportunity than he. You have the opportunity to learn the right way to drive, the opportunity to avoid the mistakes and habits acquired by others. As a good driver, you will live to enjoy all the fruits of good driving. For I, your permit to drive, and the open sesame to a lifetime of new experience, a lifetime of new beauty. I bring wings to your feet, a freedom of motion you will learn always to cherish. I bring pleasure and responsibility, the responsibility to drive well. I urge you to guard what I stand for I permit you to drive.
So that was a talking driver's permit. I wonder if I should do a show where it's just inanimate objects talking, like mirrors. I have 2 films that are mirrors that talk. This driver's permit. I'm sure I've got other ones that, like a school building. Yeah. Anyways, GM, they got it right. They're selling the cars, so they want to encourage responsible drivers, so that they don't get demonized and regulated. All right, what do we got? We got another film on the scanner, and this one is in color, and it's not British. This is Get Ready, Get Set, Grow. Enjoy.
Gardening. It's growing things, like vegetables, right? Right. It's making food. Making food? You can't make food. No way. You can eat it. You can't make it. There's only one organism on Earth that makes food, and it starts from this. It's a seed. From the seed comes a plant. From the plant comes food. Only plants make food, and they make all the food on Earth. I'm going to show you how this is done and how you can grow things the way we do it right here in Brooklyn in the Children's Garden. It all starts in spring. Parade. Wheel the littlest kid to the garden in a barrel. Cute stuff. Pretty soon the work starts. First step is fertilizing. Next is digging. It loosens the soil. This is very important. Look. It's hard work, so why not find the easy way? Rake it. Label it. Plant it. Nothing to it. Water it and roll out the carpet. Carpet or hay mulch stops weeds. About seeds. They should be planted to a depth of about 3 or 4 times the thickness of the seed. This bean has been split open. Did you know that seeds actually have leaves and a root tucked inside, ready to grow? Seeds. There's just no end to their shape, size, and color. Did you see something unusual about these leaves? Different shaped leaves on the same plant. The first leaves to grow, the tall ones here, are usually different from the regular leaves, which are just appearing. It's something like the first front teeth. By mid-spring, your garden is up and you can think about harvesting early crops. Leaf lettuce is picked leaf by leaf. Leave most of the plant so that it can continue to produce throughout the summer. Turnips. Kohlrabi. So you eat leaves and you eat roots and stems. What kind of a creature are you? Roots are more important to plants than they are to your stomach. Let's watch them grow. See the furry stuff on these roots? This is root hair, different from the hair on your head. These hairs absorb moisture and nutrients from the soil. Compare the size of root hairs with a pin. Let's take another look. At this point, the radishes in the middle of the row are thinned out. This means their roots have less competition. The result is that only the thinned radishes grow to maturity. The unthinned plants on the sides produce no radishes at all. So thinning reduces root competition and means better crops. Do your thinning early, but better late than never. Now watch these beans grow. Weeds now begin to grow each side of the beans. Watch how the weeds invade the soil around the bean roots for air and moisture. So you see, weeds like to grow. Let's run it back. Do you know that a single grass plant can grow a root system 44 miles long? That's why you pull the weeds in your garden. It's late spring and there will be no more frosts in Brooklyn. The soil is warming up. It's time to transplant nursery-raised tomatoes. Get rid of the containers so the roots can spread. can grow roots from these knobs on the stems so you can plant them deeply or on their sides if you wish. In fact, they may do better on their sides because they can produce more roots easily. After all, they are vines and they like to lie around. It's early summer and the tomato plants are large and strong. Pinch out the shoots between main stems and leaf stalks. You'll have more tomatoes more quickly. Tie them to stakes and add a bit more fertilizer. Soon there will be fruit. Let's look at how a plant makes food. A plant makes food in its green parts. It makes food only in light. Water from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air combine in the green parts to make sugars and other foods. Oxygen, which we breathe, is given off as a byproduct. Now, about flowers. Yes, they are pretty and smell good. Just ask any bee. Flowers are colored, shaped, perfumed, and have sugar inside them for one purpose. That purpose is reproduction. Here's how a flower becomes fertilized with help from a bee. We'll look at the female part of the anatomy, which is colored green. The pear shape is the ovary. The long, thin part is the style, and the mushroom shape on the top is called the stigma. The bee arrives with pollen sticking to its body. Pollen contains the male gametes from another flower. As the bee brushes past the stigma, some pollen sticks to it. Each pollen grain produces a tube which grows down the style to the ovary. Fertilization then takes place and the ovary becomes a fruit. These are tomato flowers. Now we'll look at real-life anatomy. I'm slicing the ovary. There. Recognize something? You are looking at what will become a tomato, complete with seeds for new plants. It's late summer and everything is ripe and ready to eat. But all may not be well. Just you take a close look at those succulent stems and crunchy leaves. You may find a busy world of insects all chomping away at your lovely plants. These are aphids, which suck the juice out of stems. But here comes the good guy, the red lady beetle. It is on the rampage for a juicy aphid. Gotta find me a fat one. Lovely meal. Delicious. Now take this guy, the tomato hornworm. While enjoying your tomato plant, he is being slowly eaten alive by these larvae from a wasp. But for every caterpillar lost, there's a bigger, brighter, and hungrier one. eating, munching, nibbling, and gobbling that you don't know what is eating who. Look, to be in Brooklyn is to be lucky, so naturally our harvests are good. If you want to produce your own French fries, you must first grow these objects. They are actually branches of the potato plant that grow down into the soil where the ends become stuffed with food. That's the potato. The potato is what you need to make French fries. You know, all the vegetables, grubs, and bugs which grow in this garden live and die within a few months. Yet, the first kids to grow sunflowers right here in the same spot would now be more than 80 years old. Spring, 1914. Harvest, 1922. Kids, vegetables, insects, flowers, all turn up again every year. Seems there is something here we all want. We celebrate the end of our season with a harvest festival. It's kind of good to know that people always want what the soil will grow. We try to educate the public, and we have fun. Timber! We clean the place up a bit and well, we go back to school. The garden doesn't rest. Living things in the soil stay busy digesting the remains of this season's plants into fertile compost for the next spring crop. Remember, only plants make food.
That was pretty awesome. I have some other films I feel like that are from the Brooklyn Botanical Garden from the 40s or 50s that Encyclopedia Britannica put out. Yeah, pretty great. Thanks for tuning in today. If you like what you saw and you'd like to contribute to some of the things that we have to pay for here at AV Geeks, including coffee, you can go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks. Like I said, Restream at the last minute said, oh yeah, you can't stream anything, you owe us money because of our new tiered structure, and I'm a little irritated at that. Anyways, at the very least, if you don't have any cash, you can just hit the button that says like, you can put the thumbs up button, you can tell other people about what we do. All those things are ways to help us out. And I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. And we'll be back again tomorrow, Friday. And I got more stuff to show from those kids. Holy cow, they sent me so much stuff. It's really exciting. Anyways, everybody have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.